Thank you.
Awesome. So good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Jennifer Vivian. I'm the Manager of Entrepreneurial Services with the City of Brampton. This virtual panel is brought to you in collaboration between BoxOut Performance Science, the Brampton Economic Development Innovation and Tech Team, and the Brampton Entrepreneur Center. For those of you unfamiliar with BEC, we're an innovative partnership between the province of Ontario and the City of Brampton, belonging to a large network of 47 small business enterprise centers across Ontario that provides entrepreneurs with tools and resources to help them start and grow their business. Throughout the pandemic, our focus has definitely been on helping businesses understand ways that they can pivot operations, how they can access some of the many funding and relief programs. But one topic that we haven't spent enough time speaking about is how to protect your mental health in a crisis and strategies for staying mentally well during the COVID pandemic. As business advisors, we know it's critical that you recognize what this looks like and take steps to build resiliency. BoxOut has curated an impressive lineup of panelists this morning, and we're thrilled to learn more about the strategies that they've all been using to navigate 2020. So I'll let Abhinav take it away.
Thank you, Jen, for that introduction. Good morning to everyone who's here. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for City of Brampton Innovation District for hosting us, and to all of our panelists who've taken time out of their day to share the next hour with us. You know, this year has brought with it a lot of change. Some of it has been terrible, some of it has been needed, and some of it has been positive, but not to say that any of us have been unaffected. Each of us is dealing with unique circumstances, and today's conversation is geared towards those of us who share at least one thing in common for sure, that we are all entrepreneurs. And they say entrepreneurs are the crazy people that would rather work 100 hours a week for themselves as opposed to 40 hours a week for someone else. Said by who, I really don't know, but it does seem to be true. What they didn't say, though, was how often we have to deal with moments of extreme anxiety, uncertainty, despair, and how the tide changes by day, and how many times it may seem that everything could crumble or unravel. All of this while still having to maintain a sense of calm and optimism for our families, our staff, clients, and others. We often think that a leader can't show vulnerability or weakness, and this usually continues either until you finally become comfortably profitable or until you burn out or give up. So over the course of the next 45 minutes, we'll talk about how we perceive mental health, resiliency, and hopefully be able to share some strategies and tips for those of you who've joined us. I want to quickly preface this conversation by quickly sharing how at BoxOut, how we think of mental health or physical health. You know, people often think of physical health as an absolute state. I am physically healthy, yes or no. What sometimes we don't realize or lose sight of is that our health is a fluid and ever-evolving state. You can be healthy today, but if you stop exercising, stop eating healthy, start drinking, smoking, doing other things, you can quickly go to physically unhealthy. Similarly, you could be healthy today, but next thing you know, you're shoveling and you slip, or you know, you break a leg or injure a hip. Next thing you know, you're unhealthy. And so this is not something that's an absolute state that you don't ever have to worry about it. Similarly, on the mental side, if someone has, you know, many people think I'm mentally healthy, there's nothing for me to worry about. But if someone is dealing with depression or anxiety or, you know, extreme stress, these can be just as debilitating as a broken leg or a fractured hip. And you can recover from that and you can become mentally healthy again. But just to recognize that these are fluid states, and the only difference is that the physical stuff people see on the outside, they understand it, they respect it, they care for it. All the mental stuff, it's always hidden. And so that being said, today I want to dive right in and introduce you to the panelists. Our first panelist, the esteemed Ron Bremner. He is a good friend of mine. He's in the Canadian Broadcast Hall of Fame. He spent 22 years leading major radio and TV stations. He's been the CEO of professional sports publications in New York. He mentors other elite mentors. He's like the coach to the coaches, trainer of trainers, and we're really happy to have him here today. Our next panelist is Ryan. Many of you know him as Mr. KOA. Ryan is a former university athlete turned business professional turned creative. And he's on a mission to empower everyone he comes across to become masters of their craft, masters of their art. And Mr. KOA is doing some really amazing stuff. Excited to have him here on the panel. We also are joined by Shanicka Edwards, also known as Shak. And Shak is a very impressive young woman. She's already done some amazing things. She's started her own community center. She's working closely with the city of Barrie and doing amazing stuff for those that are underserved, underrepresented, and especially for youth in the communities. And the Shak brand stands for Stay Humble and Kind. That's why she goes by Shak. Our second last panelist, we have Eris Saha. Eris is the operations manager on his route to becoming the CEO over at Cal Polymers. It's a plastics recycling company, and they have a lot of staff here in Canada as well as in the States. His goal is to take his workforce to another level, and he understands that the mental side is the key. We've been happily working with them for the last year or so, and just so you know, Cal Polymers is on pace to hit 100 million pounds of recycled plastics by the year 2022. And finally, Barinder Sandhu. She's the founder and CEO of Evergreen Pharma Solutions. She runs a major consulting practice to some of the top global pharmaceutical and cannabis companies in the world. For over 20 years, she's been supporting companies with her consulting expertise, and she's done a lot of amazing work through another organization called Pink Attitude to empower South Asian women in the community to achieve their full potential in life. She's a member of the board there, and she does a lot of other great things. And finally, I am your host. My name is Abhinav. You can also call me Abs. I'm the founder and CEO here at BoxOut Performance. I'm very, very passionate about removing barriers and breaking down obstacles that people face to becoming the best version of themselves and unlocking their full potential in life. So with that being said, I think we'll dive right into the conversation. I'm sure everybody's ready for that. So the first topic that I want to talk about today is, many of our panelists, they're coaches and they're mentors. They work with other business owners. So the first one, I want to lob it over to you, Ron. I want to ask, what do you see business owners and entrepreneurs struggling with most often?
Well, the one commonality that I've seen with entrepreneurs specifically, and I've been fortunate in my coaching career over the number of years I've been doing it. I've worked with a lot of the top CEOs in the country, and when I see the entrepreneurs coming up, the big thing that I see in common with them is that they put a premium on being busy, and everybody is so happy that they're busy, and this getting mixed up between being busy and being productive is a real problem for them, okay? And I can tell you that all the jobs I've had in my long career, and I've had some pretty good jobs, I've been very fortunate in my life, I have never had anybody call me in at the end of the year and say, Ron, we're gonna give you 20% more next year because, man, are you ever busy? Like, we've never seen anybody around here that's as busy as you are. They're not interested in how busy I am. They're interested in how productive I am. So I think one of the key things that I try to get across, and I'm on a few advisory boards for young entrepreneurs, is really focusing in on less about being busy and more about being productive. And that means more thinking about your approach, more strategic in how you do things, more thinking about your conversations before you have them. And I'll give you a quick example. Right now, we're going through this pandemic, as everybody knows, and it's a tough time for a lot of people in no matter what level of the organization you're in. But it's a great time for leaders to really understand that right now what people need is people who lead with compassion, and people who lead with caring, and people who lead with thoughtfulness. And for teams to persevere through times of pressure and uncertainty, they need compassion from leadership. They need people who, when they first get on a phone call, aren't saying to them, tell me what your sales are today. Tell me what you're doing on that initiative. Tell me how this project. They need people to say to them, how are you doing? How are things with you and your family? How are the kids? Tell me what's going on in your life. They need people to have a couple of non-business points of conversation before they get into the meat of it. And I think that's one of the message points that I want to get across today. This is not a time to move away from kindness and caring, even if our brains tend to nudge us in that direction. It's a time to get more compassionate about our people.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Anyone else want to chime in on this? Maybe Bremner?
Sure, thank you. I would sum it up 3 critical points. I think that often with entrepreneurs, I know when I first started, I made the transition from big pharma to consulting, it was really about fear of failure, right? Like there's this fear of failure and letting people down who really believe in you. There's this pressure that you put on yourself about losing everything for your family. So you're holding and you take on that burden as well. And I think that often with women as well, we want everything to be perfect. We want to make sure we have all the talent, the skills before we take that leap forward. And so there's this added pressure that you tend to like hold on to. So what I would encourage people is to have, objective outlets. This isn't necessarily a burden that you need to hold on your shoulders continuously. It is very daunting to have that kind of burden on you. And so you need to be able to have the appropriate outlets, whether that's a objective opinion from other individuals, or, journaling, exercising, physical sport, trying things that allow you to be creative and also disconnect a little bit from your day-to-day so that you can be a little bit more creative and think a little bit outside of the box.
Those are some really good points. And I can already see the comments are lighting up. How about Ryan? Ryan, I know you started this initiative to give back to local startups and you're doing some mentoring and coaching. What have you noticed with entrepreneurs that you're working with? What do they struggle with most often?
So I think, and I want to say hello to everybody. This is really cool to have a conversation like this, and it's actually very important to have these conversations. You guys can hear me okay? Yeah. So I have a unique position, seeing that I have my Bachelor of Commerce Management degree, and I took the route of pursuing the business side of, I guess, my brain and mindset before becoming the creative that I am. And I think I've been able to synchronize both, I guess, eras of my life and made them into one, and found a way to utilize it to help myself, my own business, and other people's businesses. And I think a big issue, and it's almost the same issue for the companies that I'm working with, the small businesses, or just clients I work with, is that they don't care about the business side of things. Like, not even the fact they don't know about it, they just don't care. And I think it might be a lack of knowledge, it might be a fear, it might just be because a lot of people just want to focus on creating, just focus on building stuff. They don't actually want to work on the business side, and that's okay. And I think the alternative is to hire people to do those things. But what happens is, especially as a small business, if you have to hire people to do those things, you have to pay people to do those things. And when you're starting as a small business, you can't afford to pay people to do those things, but you also don't want to do those things yourself, right? So it gets them in this position where they're like, okay, I don't have the business acumen or experience to kind of grow my business or market or know all the things to work on my accounting or my billing or anything like that. I can't really pay to hire someone either to do it. So they just ignore it altogether, right? And they hope they can build their brand just solely on the product or service that they provide. And that's not enough, So what I've been trying to do is I've been bringing these small businesses in as selective as possible. Like, not all companies are great businesses, but the ones that I think are really good businesses, I've been bringing them in under my program and kind of being that crutch for them from the business side, just and the marketing side, just to kind of, allow them to focus on their talents. And, I'm not necessarily taking over the business stuff, but give them some type of guidance where they're like, okay, as an example, I'm a photographer. So you book a photographer for something, you get photos, and you're like, now what? You know what I mean? Like, people get all these photos or videos of stuff, and they're like, okay, I have an album of stuff, but what do I do with this? And that's kind of been the ongoing theme with businesses, especially in the social era where everyone just wants to put stuff out. But if you put stuff out with no plan and no structure, it just goes on empty ears and empty eyes, right? So I've been really focused on trying to help people understand that, you know, the business side of things is actually probably the most important part of your business growing, rather than just a service or product you provide.
So true. And just for the audience and the other panelists here, like when you said the biggest thing that I see business owners struggling with is the business side of things, some people may have been taken off guard. Like, what do you mean? So I just want to give them the bigger picture that Ryan works with creatives. Primarily, he's working with videographers, photographers, all sorts of graphic designers and creative people. And so they're so caught up in their art or their passion that they lose sight of the business side of things. And I think a comparable would be perhaps, you know, when Ron or Bremner are working with very business-minded people, that maybe they lose sight of the other stuff, the marketing or the creative or other things that they should be doing. So I think the bigger point here is growth mindset, right? Like the people you're working with, they simply, they don't feel comfortable picking up new skills, diving into uncertainty, not knowing things. They kind of just live in this state of fear and, you know, just paralyzed in terms of how they move forward, right?
Yeah, and also I think that when people become entrepreneurs, like, I mean, I took an entrepreneur course in university, but that doesn't tell you the responsibility that actually comes with being an entrepreneur. And I think when people finally, you know, either quit their job or they start a business, they don't realize that the amount of hats you have to wear as an entrepreneur to be successful is all of them. Like, it's not, you can't just do a little bit and get by as an entrepreneur. You have to be your finance guy and your marketing guy and your production guy and your so on. Like, so taking on all those roles becomes a very big culture shock to a lot of people who didn't realize what really comes with being an entrepreneur. And I think it's just the lack of education and understanding of what really goes into this stuff that's causing a disconnect.
Totally. Eris, or Shak, do you guys want to add anything on this one?
Shak, if you want to go first, or if not, I'm happy to speak on it. Definitely great points from everybody so far. One thing I would say just on that last point is there's so many hats to wear. Absolutely. You know, you can do everything from being a part of your finance, understanding accounts payable, receivable. There's so much scope on top of planning for growth, budgeting, actual operations, right? You can't ever learn all of it. So understanding what your capacity is and your priority and your skill set is very important. So for example, for me, I understand now after going through tons of struggle and a little bit of help from obviously Abhinav and the BoxOut program, a little bit more of what I want to accomplish with my time at my company. It's really important to understand what you truly want. And if you don't understand that, then you're going to be working towards a goal that you can't communicate effectively across your whole team. For me, it's a little bit different as well. It's a family business. So there's a lot of fun when it comes to working with family. There's both sides of their opinions as well as your opinions. And communication is something that really, really is probably what I'd say the most important aspect to a larger or growing organization. As you continue to grow, there's so many different aspects of the business that you as an entrepreneur have to manage. And whether that's now you have additional markets by expanding, or you're, because of something like COVID, you are struggling to find out, okay, where can we make dollars count? Or how can we more effectively invest? Or what are we able to utilize? If you're not able to effectively communicate that throughout your chain of your company, your business, your ownership group, it can really affect the direction in which you're able to move and how effectively. And again, one last thing I would probably say before we pass it off to Shak is fail fast. If you do not try, you do not succeed and you do not fail, but don't take that failure as a negative because you learn from it. The amount of things you can learn from failure is just as much as you can learn from success.
Wise words.
Very. And I hope I'm not the last person. You guys all had some amazing points there. It was great to listen to. I can say I agree with everyone. I want to go back to something that Gurinder said with entrepreneurs and thinking, overthinking what other people think. That is something that is huge when it comes to some of the youth that I mentor. They're very, very concerned about what other people are going to think about what they're putting out, or even who they're trying to put this stuff out to. So that is huge. Spending time getting to know yourself, getting to know your why, getting to know your brand is extremely important when it comes to putting this stuff together. So everything from the time management to the personal development that was mentioned, I agree with, guys. So
Perception, right?
yes,
Perception.
absolutely.
Always, it's in the back of our minds. What will my parents say? What will my spouse say? What will the community say about me? What, there's all these things, and they can often really hold us back if we allow it to. And so the first step is to recognize it. That's a really good point you brought up.
Ab, if I can make a point,
Of course.
just piggybacking on a couple of those things. People tend to get too worried about what other people are thinking and saying. And the reality is somebody told me a long time ago, Ron, don't worry about what other people are thinking, because half of them aren't even thinking about you anyway. And the other half hope you fail. So don't worry about it. Just do what you can do. On that part about failing, I would encourage everybody to read something on Thomas Edison, one of the greatest entrepreneurs and greatest inventors who has ever lived. And he had a great saying. He said, I found 10,250 ways not to make a light bulb before he actually found a way to make a light bulb. Okay. And one of the things that was just mentioned was, as you evolve and as you learn and as you grow as an organization, the one commonality I've seen from people at the top is when they start the company and as they become more successful, the one thing that happens is you get further and further away from what brought you in the company, in that your focus becomes more on people and people problems and people issues. And if you're a tech guy or if you're a HR person or whatever, and that got you into that business, you're going to find that no matter what brought you into the business, you're going to be spending more and more time on people issues and people problems. And I would encourage people to start reading and make it part of their regular diet to feast on more information about how to work with people, how to motivate people, how to understand people, how to get along with people, how to read people, everything about people. Because at the end of the day, no matter what business you're in, it's all about people.
That's actually such a good point. And it's not something I ever realized when I was getting into this journey. I thought starting a business is, every day you're going to work on something that you love, that you're passionate about. Every day you're, just driving towards what you love. But after a certain period, you realize that the mentality has to change, because for you to do what you want your business to do, it's other people who are going to champion for you, your staff, your colleagues, your clients, and it just becomes all about relationships. I can honestly say that being an entrepreneur today, it's almost entirely just phone calls and meetings and talking to people. It's less about all the things that brought us into it, like Ron said. And so that's really important, because with the focus of today being mental resiliency and going through stuff, we have to realize, step out of our own shoes and realize everybody that we're working with and dealing with and supporting is also going through their own stuff. And are we taking the time to consider what they're going through, and can we help them? And so that takes me to the next topic that I want to bring in. And this one, I'm going to ask you guys to get a little vulnerable, open up for our audience. Let's share some of the struggles and difficulties that we may have personally gone through in our lives, and how we overcame them. I'll tell you very quickly, just in the last 2 weeks, I've had the deaths of 3 different family members. I've dealt with a lot of terrible news, and it's just, it feels very hard at times to keep moving. But then, you have to kind of ground yourself and center yourself, remind yourself, that you're still very blessed and lucky just to even wake up and realize that there's a lot of things that we can do. So we can't let our, emotions hold us back at times. So that's just something that I'm dealing with right now, but I know everybody's dealing with stuff. And so maybe I'll lob this one over to Bremner to kick this one off. But if you can maybe, if you feel comfortable sharing any difficulties or struggles that you've gone through and how you overcame them.
Yeah, so I think like throughout my journey, I always have encountered challenges and adversity. My parents came here as new immigrants. The expectations on us to be educated. I'm a multi-degree holder, University of Toronto for chemistry specialist, and then an MBA at Rotman. And I've done multiple post-secondary sort of certificates and whatnot to kind of build that. For us, it was that pressure of building yourself, learning, and moving forward and kind of building a new generation. So, of course, I think everyone will encounter challenges at one point or another. It's inevitable, right? And some people feel it more peppered throughout their lives. And I think the biggest thing that has helped me personally is acknowledging and recognizing that there's always going to be disruptions, right? So we've seen disruptions in technology take place, and then we have to adapt to those changes. So learn to embrace changes. It's your journey on how quickly you embrace changes. Are you able to move forward? So it's about, going through the emotions that you're going to face. But the key is to not be stagnant and hold yourself back in one particular phase. Time is going to move forward with or without you. It is the most critical asset that we have is time. And so what we want to be able to do is recognize that we have these emotions, find the right outlet, unload that like clouded judgment that might impair, some of your decision making or for your inability to move forward. And if you're able to do that, and what I personally do is I actually do something new that I haven't done. So it takes me out of my comfort zone. And so if I'm able to do that, it actually, I think more creatively. And so when I'm dealing with situations, it's easier for me to kind of like let go of all of that judgment, the pressure, and really come in with almost like a clear head into something and doing that. And I think that the one thing that I've also learned to do is listen to my inner voice more. I have it in here. It's like sometimes this fear of not letting go of it, or like all this pressure about what people might be saying or to you. So it's about listening to my inner voice. And then often what I also do is just reflect and learn. Iris's point is absolutely spot on. You don't learn from successes. Great, you've done it. You learn from your adversity and challenges. That's how you're going to get better. And so for me, those are the biggest, largest messages is, okay, how did I deal with this challenge? How do I deal with it better maybe in the future? How do I avoid it? And now what else do I need to think about? And, I also want to say that sometimes the difficulties and struggles could be, as mentioned earlier on with our panelists with the previous question, we take on too much. Understand your core competencies, right? So understand your core skills, and there's nothing wrong. And I've seen one of the best pharmaceutical companies, in Canada grow where, the owner was the creative person and he had someone else run his operations. So he never let go of his core passion and competencies. And so realizing that you need to sort of put on your business to know what's going on. You don't need to manage of that, So I think those are some of the things that helped me with some of the sort of challenges that I've gone through about the expectations that others have put on you, as well as the expectations that you have on yourself in challenging and trying to fulfill them.
Yeah, a lot of us tend to feel like we're on our own, and we don't want to ask for help. We don't want to rely on others. It may feel like it's weakness. And so you're right. That's definitely something that affects a lot of entrepreneurs. I feel like Ryan might have something good to add on this one. I know he's been through a lot in his life. I'd love to hear from you, Ryan.
Yeah, Brenda, those are amazing points. I think to add to that, I think just a big thing we have to remember is pacing ourselves. I think we live in an era of instant gratification and instant response, instant success. People become famous overnight. We're seeing all this stuff that happens that isn't normal. You know what I mean? It's stuff it's stuff that is not normal for for any type of environment, right? Those are the outliers that happens, and just as fast as people can become successful is just as fast as they can be torn down, right? And I think the focus on building long-term projects and the focus on longevity and the focus on foundation has to come back to the forefront. You know, there's a lot of like, especially because social media, like if we're being honest, a large portion of social media, people are doing things because they want to blow, right? They're not doing things because of the passion, not doing things because of the creativity, because they're seeing what works will work for that guy, and then they try and implement it in their company and they hope it works for them so they can blow. That is the main factor why social media is the way it is and why it's so toxic and complicated, because people aren't doing things for the longevity of the business. They're doing things they want to hit that thing that one day, if I keep throwing stuff out there, eventually something's going to click and someone's going to pull me. That's people's mindset. That's a lot of people's mindset when they're creating things, when they're building businesses, when they're athletes, whatever it is. Everyone wants to just get that one thing, that one break that gets them to blow. And that creates depression, because when you don't get that thing for so long, you feel like you're not successful. You feel like you haven't attained anything. You've been putting out stuff for so long and nothing's happened. But you have to shift your mindset and perspective, because as long as you're putting things out, as long as you're creating and learning, you're making up ground. You know what I mean? Like I quit my job 3 years ago. This February coming will be 3 years, and I can say, yeah, like, you know, I haven't, you know, I'm not at 30,000 followers. I'm at 12. But if I look back 3 years ago, I think I was like 7,000 followers, and I wasn't making as much as I was having. I didn't have as many clients. I didn't travel as much as I did. So allowing yourself to reflect, and someone said it, like it's you against yourself. Like you're not the target, and the unrealistic expectation of what other people are doing has nothing to do with you. You know what I mean? And if you stay consistent to yourself and you measure yourself against yourself and the things that you've done, and look back and don't live in the past, but allow yourself to appreciate the things that you've done, it allows you to have a better sense of security, a better sense of self, and allows you to kind of view things more rationally. And I think a big thing that a lot of people fail to recognize is that social media, or anything that you see publicly, whether it's a business's, their public numbers, or a new campaign, or anything you see that is put out, will always be the best version of that person or company. No one's putting out their losses. No one's putting out the things that don't look good, the blemishes, that no one's putting that out. So just because you see that does not make someone's company more successful than yours, does not make someone's company more, you know, important than yours, because just like them, you're putting out your successes, but we don't see the behind the scenes stuff. We don't see that those companies are putting stuff out that are in deficits, right? Like we don't know all the things that are happening just because someone puts something out. So don't allow what you see to skew your perspective of your own business.
Yeah, easily. A company could have 1 million followers and the brightest Instagram and social media page, and yet they could be $1 million in deficit, and no one would know. So I think a really good point you brought up was how oftentimes we spend a lot of time looking at others, looking at, you know, comparing and doing that kind of stuff, instead of just focusing on what we should be doing and expecting things to happen, instead of just continuing to work and believing in what you're doing.
I just wanted to add,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, add a point to that. It really is like the iceberg theory, right? So it's like you only see the tip of the top of the iceberg. You don't see the actual iceberg, right? Underneath. And often those are all the, you know, failures, the attempts that are made. And so people see this little peak on the top and they're like, oh, look how quickly they were successful. Well, it took a lot of grit and hard work to get to that success, a linear progression. So I think the points that you made were extremely valid. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a real key today, is that people have to understand there's no elevator to success. You got to take the stairs one at a time. My dad told me years ago, everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. Everybody wants to be thin, but nobody wants to take a diet. Everybody wants to play the piano, but nobody wants to practice. And nothing happens without being committed. So many people are involved, but very few people are committed. And it's like bacon and eggs. In bacon and eggs, the chicken's involved, but the pig's committed. You got to be all in, okay? And when you're all in, you understand that there's a process. It's going to take time. It doesn't happen overnight. And one thing that's going to help you get through is you need to develop a sense of humor. And you need to be able to laugh at yourself. And you need to be able to look at things realistically. And you need to be able to understand that you don't have all the answers, and none of us is as smart as all of us. And one quick thing to leave that on is that one of the things that I notice that hurts a lot of entrepreneurs is they shy away from having difficult discussions with themselves about how the business is doing, difficult discussions with people that they have on staff that they know aren't pulling their weight, that aren't doing the job, but they hang around and they keep them around for far too long in many cases because they don't want to have those difficult discussions. And difficult discussions are not like red wine. They don't get better the longer you leave them. They only get worse and tougher and harder and more expensive.
Really good points and such good analogies. I want to add one because you had so many good ones. Everybody wants to be a diamond, but nobody wants to face immense pressure and be cut. You know, not a lot of people are willing to take that, but although it's required. That was really good. I'll give a quick chance for Shak to add anything here, or Eris.
Yes. So, so many things are going through my mind right now with this, but I think that the main thing that's jumping out at me is having that mindset of, so fear to me has two meanings, right? So it's false evidence appearing real. And for me, I face everything and rise every time. So when evidence starts appearing real, it's your opportunity to build your resilience like an elastic band. And every failure and every time you get scared, it's your opportunity to overcome that. And I have an example right now. My business has boomed this year. We grew to 10 staff. And I'm now operating a 13,000 square foot facility. So one of the challenges that I'm having right now is people. So what I've learned is instead of, as I think Ron mentioned, instead of getting, instead of getting rid of people or getting upset, it's about having communication and building resiliency and kind of getting to know and cracking down a little bit into each person, because when you build resilience in each situation and you can have those tough conversations with your staff, you can really build a strong foundation. So I mean, that's one thing that I live by, is just making sure that we're not running away from every obstacle. We're actually trying to actively go at it and figure out how we can fix the problem and overcome the challenges and rise in every situation that we approach. So that's, yeah, you guys, I mean, I keep coming in at the end, but like I agree with everything that's being said. You guys are,
and you're adding really really unique insights as well. I appreciate that.
no worries.
All right, Eris.
Yeah, so I guess I get the honor of going last. A lot was said, definitely. I have to agree with absolutely everything everyone said. A few points I had were actually taken out of my mouth and said by everybody. One of the things is, and again, I'm going to reiterate it because I think it's important. We never see the process, the failure, or the process. We only see the success, and that's a significant aspect. But from a mental standpoint, what I think maybe wasn't discussed is we should cheer for others' success. We should applaud and appreciate the success, that whether they're sharing it and not the process, it's the fact that they have done something and accomplished something. Not resent it or take it in a fashion as, why haven't I done this? one of my personal problems, throughout my whole career and life has been constantly struggling and failing. And it has a way of getting to you, and it has a way of lowering your worth and your value as an individual. And especially in entrepreneurship, you will fail. I started 3 different businesses before I, really took over the family business, and each one of those had its own struggles. And again, like I said, you learn a lot from each and every situation. It could be as simple as, not being the best student, and that can set you in a negative path because maybe you weren't accustomed or attuned to that learning style. Maybe you're more of a kinesthetic learner, right? The type of way you react as an individual versus how you were trained to value success through a grade. I personally was not a good student ever. And to this day, I'm going to say I'm still not a good student, but I do love learning. And one point that Ron stated was read. One thing that I do every day without fail is I read. And reading gives you a chance to be introspective as well as understand from other people's successes and failures. So I really think that, a constant thirst for knowledge, because we never know enough and we never know what's right. And we can learn from what other people have done and haven't done to try and apply that to become, more successful in whatever it is you're doing.
Awesome. So I want to spend the last 5 to 10 minutes before we get into questions, if we have any, to really focus on actionable strategies and takeaways that our attendees can walk away with. So with that being said, how can we empower people to be more in control of their mental health? And do you have any strategies or tips that you can share for people to build resiliency or grit or mental toughness, which are all skills that all of us have needed to get to this point in our lives?
I'll start with this one if I may. Definitely one thing that I always say to people is don't be afraid to unplug. Spending alone time with yourself and becoming self-aware and learning about the things that you like and don't like are very undervalued. People need to unplug, take the time to reevaluate what it is that they want to accomplish, take the time to journal, take the time to read. I once a month go back and read my journal from the month before to see what's happened, what's going on, have I progressed, right? Just taking the time to self-assess. In today's day, I think someone mentioned there are so many things happening all the time, so many things to reflect on, so many things to digest, that taking that time to reflect is extremely important, especially as an entrepreneur, because entrepreneurs are go, 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 go. But once we hit the wall, everything hits us at once. So I would say take away, unplug, and take some time to journal and write about what you're trying to accomplish, who you're trying to be, and what you want to be in this world. So that is, and stay humble and kind always, because it'll take you further than anything else could.
Thanks, Shak. That's awesome.
If I can jump in, because I don't really want to be last again. In regards to everything that Shak just said, 100% agree. Unplugging is extremely important. And then also being grateful for the situation we're in. I think during this crazy time of COVID and social distancing and keeping people rooted, it's given us really an opportunity or a chance to spend that time with ourselves. We have to appreciate that. So instead of filling our time with constant social interactions for the sake of being busy, or for the sake of being busy with a relationship that doesn't value you or you don't truly value, it's something we have to accept, as an outcome of the situation we're in. And really, it gives you a little bit more time to truly focus on what is important to you. If you're a type A or type B personality, how do you want to spend your time, or how do you map out what's important to you? Again, I personally do goal setting with Abhinav at BoxOut, and that's really something that's helped me, or is helping me. I haven't completed all of it, but the fact is, getting started in a process is more effective than standing back and looking at it, being too far away.
So, Ab, first I want to say to Eris, don't feel bad about being a bad student, okay? Because when I hear people like Barinder, all the kids I went to school with were like Barinder, and my father used to say he was tired of having everybody come up and ask him how Ron's doing in school. So he used to tell them that Ron is actually doing very well because he's in the half of the class that makes the top half possible. And by the time they figured out what he was saying, he was halfway down the block and it was too late to do anything. But when you're talking about leading people and leading organizations, one of the things that I think is critical is understand that you can get everything in life you want if you help enough other people get what they want. Don't focus on yourself, focus on other people. What can you do to help other people be the best they can be? How can you connect with them as employees, as people, not just as people who can produce for you, not just as people who you rely on to come through at the end of the month and help you meet your objectives. Get to know them as people, get to understand them as people, get to know their families, get to know what their ambitions are and what they want to do in life, and understand that connecting with them can be the most gratifying and most fulfilling part of your business career. I've been fortunate to lead a lot of large companies, and I can't tell you one budget when I look back over 35 years, 40 years of leading people, but I cherish the memories of working with people as people and watching them grow and develop and attain success and meet their goals. Those are the things that at the end of the day are really important. Those are the things that make a difference. And at the end of the day, business and life is not just about making money, it's about making a difference. And I think that is how you can measure success, and that will help you understand a lot of other things a lot better based on how you measure yourself, and not measure yourself against what other people are thinking and what other people's expectations are. But I think KOA had a great point, is that when you take a look at your progress and you see that you're getting better, it's not that I failed in that company and now I'm trying this company. It's what did you learn in that first company? And what did you learn in that second company? And what did you learn in that third company? And the success that, as one guy told me, Ron, he said, I worked 35 years to be an overnight success. When I started this company, nobody could believe how great I was and how fast I got it done, but they didn't see the 35 years that I had to fail and scrape and hit bottom and do things to be able to learn to position myself to be successful. So, don't be too hard on yourself. Have a good sense of humor. Understand how important other people are, and measure yourself against the things in life that are really important.
So true. And actually, I want to just take a second here, because you said something that kind of conflicted with something that was said earlier, but I want to put it in perspective for people. So earlier it was said, you should really focus on yourself. Don't worry about what others think. Like, be true to yourself. And you said, don't focus on yourself, focus on others, care for them. And so what I want to say here is these are not mutually exclusive. Ron is not saying disregard what was said earlier and listen to what I'm saying. What he's saying is give before you can get. Look to care for others and provide for others, not in a self-serving or selfish way, but just because you can. Like Shak said, stay humble and kind. If you help others, it comes back. Karma, not everybody believes in it, but I think it's a real thing, right? You see examples of it all the time. Don't look for what you can receive, right? Look for how you can help others, because principles of reciprocity, then they'll look to pay it back, right? They'll look to pay it forward. They'll look to help you out. And when he says, don't think about yourself, it's not in the sense of you shouldn't think about what's important to you, or you shouldn't question what's important to you, but it's really from the sense of don't just be focused on don't be self-absorbed. Don't be in your bubble. You have to focus and care on about other people. So I wanted to clarify that, because I know Ron made a really, really good point there. Anyone else have anything to add to this?
I'll add one more thing. I'll keep it short. I think, like I said earlier, appreciation is definitely something we need to remember to do. The constant comparing, and we often forget to let things, sink in a bit, and not live in those moments, but appreciate each moment as a milestone or a part of our life, or a stage in our life. But also just allow ourselves to decompress, and just piggying back on what they said about unplugging. Like, unplugging doesn't always mean like you have to turn off your social media or don't talk to nobody. Sometimes it just means having conversations like these where you're surrounding yourself by certain people that have a similar mindset. I think it's a very simple concept, but who you surround yourself with really impacts your mindset and how you work and how you even view things, your perspectives. If you're around dreamers and you are a dreamer, then most cases you guys will all attain some type of positivity because you guys have the same mindset. But if you're a dreamer around someone who doesn't see things like that way, if you're around someone who's not as optimistic, if you're around someone who's used to settling and just being okay with mediocre, they will remove that spark in you to dream. Whether you like it or not, being around that type of energy is going to impact you in a negative way, right? So we have to obviously reevaluate, and it doesn't mean like lose friends or cut people off, but just really be deliberate in where you're directing your energy and the type of friends you're keeping around you and type of conversations you're having, because it has a direct correlation on your mindset, your impact, your mental health. So if you need to be in rooms with a bunch of entrepreneurs once a week just to kind of get you back on track because your friends aren't that way, then do that. You know what I mean? Because there's nothing wrong with having friends, but as many of you guys have known and probably experienced, most people who are entrepreneurs, you usually probably the one or two people in your group of friends that kind of branch off. And doesn't mean you're better than them, but you get to a point where you're like, we're not really the same in terms of how we view things, how we view life. And being around you too often is actually hindering to my growth and my company, right? And that doesn't mean we can't be friends still. But when it comes to my business, it comes to my growth, I need to separate myself in certain aspects and give myself the space to grow in a different direction than you are. And I think that the acknowledgement of like where and when to utilize your friendships and utilize the groups is very important to be able to dictate and keep you grounded, so just knowing your circles and making sure you're deliberate with where you're putting your time and energy is important.
Totally. And not to put in a shameless plug here, but I really believe this. Self-awareness, right? If you can get to know yourself better, if you can get to understand yourself better, your tendencies, your mindset, your character type, your abilities, and this is what we do at BoxOut. And all of the panelists here, I've worked with them in the past, and we continue to support each other. But the whole idea is once you can get to know yourself better, then you can really create that optimal environment around you in terms of what you need to get to where you need to go. Just want to leave a couple of minutes at the end for questions here. I know we have a question from Rena. So she asks, what are some of the speakers' daily success habits that keep you on track? So maybe if everyone doesn't mind just chiming in here, just give us a quick 1, 2, 3 habits that you do every single day that helps keep you on track and avoid kind of the lulls and ruts of everything that we have to deal with.
I can start off on this one. A little fun one is I have a smartwatch that goes off every hour on the hour. And that way, during my core productive times, I'm able to identify what I've accomplished in that previous 55 minutes, and then I can focus on the next 55. And I take it in blocks of 45 minutes to understand best how I've used my time effectively and or ineffectively. And then, don't let it set me back. What's next?
I'm gonna go next just because I have to unfortunately get off this call right now. So one thing that I do every day when I wake up is I just stop and give gratitude for my day, and that usually gets me off to a great start. I get up and I'm thankful for the fact that I get to do what I do every day. As entrepreneurs, we chose this life, so being grateful for it and thanking God, the universe, whoever you believe in, for that opportunity will start you off on an amazing track. So thank you guys very, very much for having me. This was so fantastic and awesome. And good luck to everyone. And it was so nice to meet you all. Have a great day, guys.
Thanks, Shak. You were great. Take care.
I think it's important to have a schedule. to have a routine that you stick to, that you work at, plan your work your plan. I also think it's important. What I try to do is reach out a couple of times a week to somebody along the road who's been important to me, who's played a part in any success that I've had. Last week I phoned my grade 10 history teacher, who's 84 years old, just to keep in touch with him and tell him how much I appreciated his help, because he was very instrumental in getting all of us to do more public speaking, which I've gone on and had a pretty good career in public speaking. And I told him about that, and he said he should be getting a commission now on my speeches. But try and reach out and write a letter to people who've been important to me during formative years and other jobs, and just say thank you for their help along the way. I think it's really important. And then also, at least once or twice a day, have a quick 2 or 3 minute conversation with somebody who's not related to anything that I'm working on, just to keep perspective and keep variety in my life.
Yeah, in fact, Ron is the one that taught me to send handwritten thank you cards. And he taught me this about maybe 10 or 15 years ago. He said, no one does this anymore. Everyone sends DMs and emails and texts, and it's very impersonal. You don't think twice about a text or something that you receive. But if someone actually sends you a handwritten card, not only will you feel nice, but like you'll remember that. That makes an impression. And it really separates you from the clutter in the crowd, because no one else is doing stuff like that. So that's a really good way to not just show thanks and gratitude, but also to connect with others. Barinder, if you have anything to add. What we're asking about is actionable daily success habits that keep you on track. I'm not sure if we're having an audio issue here. Ryan or Barinder, can you hear me?
I think everybody's muted.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Sorry, yeah, I didn't hear it. Kind of
No
fizzled out
problem.
a little on my end here. But I would say some of the similar comments had already been made. For me, I have a to-do list. I'm very structured. I think connecting with people is key. I actually wanted to echo some of the words of Ron and what he had expressed. Some of my greatest successes isn't about, achieving certain goals or KPIs or anything. It's about people. It's about the relationships that I've been able to have. It's about seeing their own growth and successes and learning from that as well. So I think those were really key points. And so it's really important to stay connected with people. And I think also it's about being optimistic. I think also, like for me, sometimes you can have one thing lead into another situation, and it's just staying focused and, having a clear mind. So structure in the to-do list for personally works really well, to be able to be like, these are the goals that I've set, and this is what I want to be able to achieve. And how do I do that? Or how do I work with people to get to that level as well?
Fantastic. Ryan, did you want
Thank
to
you.
share
I
any
actually
final...
have to leave as well, so I just
Okay.
wanted to thank everybody for their time today.
Awesome. Ryan, did you want to share any daily success habits that you have, or should we move on to the conclusion here?
Yeah, I can. Mine are pretty simple. I'm militant with my schedule. If it's not on my schedule, it doesn't exist. So I kind of make sure I give myself the opportunity to structure things in my calendar. But I think writing things is also a big thing. I have a whiteboard here that has a whole bunch of goals for this year that I kind of fill up at the start of every year. And just, I don't have to look at it every day, but knowing it's there and just being able to glance up into it whenever I kind of have the time, or just having something in your constant view is very important. Whether you're consciously aware of it or subconsciously aware of it, having something visually, there for you to see, and that this is what I want to do, things you said, affirmations that you have chosen, having them in clear view, whether it's a whiteboard or a pin pad or something. When you have stuff in your digital, in your phone, or like in a book somewhere. The book's not bad, but like if it's not open, it's useless. You know what I mean? So I think having things visibly open for you, whether you want to write on the whiteboard or write a whole bunch of sticky notes and put them on your computer in plain sight, I think those are things that really help, rather than, you can write goals down in a book, but if you don't open the book, then I mean, you know, it's no use. So I think because we're so busy and there's so much things happening so quickly, having things in locations you'll always be, that you can see very clearly is a good way to start.
Awesome. So I think it's clear, you know, having heard from all of these fantastic panelists, that, you know, we all chose to launch a business. We all chose to become entrepreneurs. And though launching this company and running your business is a wild ride, it's full of ups and downs. And, you know, there's a lot of stuff that pops up that you had no idea about. There's clearly lots of things that we can do as entrepreneurs to keep our lives from spiraling out of control and to make sure that we can be on top of our mental health and wellness. I'll now pass it along to Astawa or Jen for any closing remarks. And with that, that'll bring an end to our first of hopefully many discussions on mental health and wellness for entrepreneurs.
That's right. Thank you so much, Abhinav. And thank you to all the panelists and to yourself for curating this discussion. I know we're a little bit over time, but I think that's a testament to how valuable and how packed with knowledge this session was. So again, thank you to all of you for sharing your knowledge, experiences, and being vulnerable with people who need to hear this message the most. It really means a lot and has a huge impact on everyone here today too. So I know we are, again, a bit over time, so I will keep it a little brief. Everyone that tuned in today, Abhinav and BoxOut, they are one of their new businesses that recently moved to Brampton from Mississauga. So we're thrilled to have him here and thrilled to be working with him as well. And he's a testament to what we're building in our downtown, known as the Brampton Innovation District. We've got tons of partners and resources in the Innovation District, right on George Street in downtown Brampton. The house businesses like BoxOut, the house businesses like Ryan's business and Ron's business, and any other business that you might be building, grow from ideation to go to market, to hire employees, and eventually scaling with more funding as well. And we've got tons of resources and partners like the Erasmus Venture Zone, which BoxOut is a partner of, the Brampton Entrepreneurship Center, which Jen and Dan are part of as well. Founders Institute, and much, much more to help you no matter where you are in your stage of the business journey. So feel free to connect with us and learn more about how we can help your business grow. And of course, we're always sharing more resources and events like this one to help you with everything outside of your profit and loss statement and your product development too. So again, thank you so much to Abhinav and all the panelists for joining us today. And thank you to the audience for being attentive, engaged, and making time out of your schedule for all of us today too. So that's all.
I'll just quickly add the contact information for all of our panelists. So Eris, this is Eris Saha of Cal Polymers. You can check out calpolymers.com. Ryan, MR.KOA, you can find him on Instagram or MrKOA.com. Ron Bremner, he's the president and founder of Gold Medal Consulting. You can check out his website. I believe it's goldmedalconsulting.com, right?
Correct.
That's right. Shak had to leave, but shaksworld.com. And yeah, check out boxoutperformance.com for those of you who don't know about us. It's been a privilege and a pleasure to be here with you. I wish you all a fantastic Friday, a great weekend, happy holidays, and let's bring on 2021.
Thank you.
Awesome. Stay well, everyone. Take care.
Bye-bye.